the worrying rebirth of Bangladesh's Islamist party. In a dramatic political shift, Bangladesh's interim government, led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, has overturned the ban on the controversial Islamist party Jamaat-e-Islami on August 28th. This decision reverses the ban imposed by former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, who was ousted last August following massive nationwide protests against her authoritarian rule and controversial quota reforms. The protests, primarily led by university students, were sparked by Hasina's reinstatement of a 30% quota for government jobs for descendants of the 1971 freedom fighters that was part of the Bangladesh Liberation War from Pakistan. Amidst this turmoil, Jamaat-e-Islami's Secretary General Mia Ghulam Parwar welcomed the ban's reversal, stating, quote, "We made demand to present the interim government to revoke it. The government did justice by resisting a tyranny. I thank God Almighty for this." However, the decision has reignited debates about the party's controversial past, particularly its alleged role in war crimes during the 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War, where an estimated 3 million people died and 200,000 women were raped. Critics argue that allowing Jamaat-e-Islami back into politics could undermine Bangladesh's progress and reconciliation efforts. The party, banned from elections since 2013 due to its opposition to secularism, must now register with the Election Commission to participate in future polls. This development underscores the complex challenges that Bangladesh faces in balancing democratic freedoms, historical accountability, and concerns about religious extremism as it navigates a new, tenuous political landscape under the interim government. So I thought that this was really important to cover because shortly, I remember we were going to cover when the Islamist party got banned in Bangladesh, but then we didn't end up covering that because Sheikh Hasina fled the freaking country like 4 days later. So I was like, I don't think this is relevant anymore. We're not going to cover this. There is a lot to talk about here. And I want to take a very broad approach because there's a lot of unknowns here, right? So, first of all, we should start out by saying that the deaths of over 500 people in this uprising against the Awami League, you know, borderline autocratic control over the Bangladesh state, like, I want there to be full accountability to the fullest extent of the law against those who are responsible in perpetrating the murder of over 500 civilians in these past few months, right? Like that just needs to be said like off top. We want there to be justice for everyone that was killed. So this is really complicated. The Jamaat-e-Islami in Bangladesh has had a long and complicated history of its legal status within the nation going back to Bangladesh's independence from East Pakistan. And so there's been times where it was like illegal and then it was legal again and then it was illegal again and then they were kind of allowed to be a party but they're not allowed to participate in elections and then they got banned and then now they're legal again. So there's a storied history. And well, Armin, let me just start out with seeing if you have any immediate reactions because I know as an Iranian watching what's happening in Bangladesh in terms of student protests against authoritarianism ushered in Islamist domination. And I know many Iranians are watching what are happening and are trying to give a warning to the people of Bangladesh to not let the same thing happen to them. So I think you have a unique perspective that I like. So how do you react to this?
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to talk to both groups of people who think the toppling of the government was the correct thing to do or the wrong thing to do. With because a lot of times people think that what I'm saying is regardless of whether or not that is true. Okay, if you think that removal of the previous government was correct, or if you think it was wrong, this applies to both of you. You have to be concerned about an Islamist takeover of your country, right? And I speak this as a person coming from a country who toppled the Pahlavi dynasty, and then Islamism took over, and in a way that people didn't expect. If because people, a lot of people like say, no, Armin, this is different. Bangladesh is different. Iran is was Islamic. Bangladesh is not as Islamic as Iran was. Well, Iran wasn't actually Islamic. Nobody could have seen. I mean, Islamic in the sense that Iran will and turn into a theocracy. Nobody could see that coming. Nobody, including the mullahs themselves, saw that coming. The mullahs themselves saw that even after the revolution, they thought that other people will take over the government and they will have to go back to preaching and stuff. And they were actually uh, shocked. They were pleasantly surprised how much power they managed to have. Khomeini himself thought that he did the revolution and other people with suits are going to come and take over the government, and he's going to go to Qom to do his preaching. That's what he thought that was going to happen. But eventually, they managed to take over the entire government and run everything Islamically. So these things do happen, and you have to be very concerned. In fact, the conditions in Bangladesh are more. If you look at how the Iranian attitude was right a couple of years before the revolution towards the idea of Iran becoming an Islamic theocracy, you would have guessed. Nobody would have guessed it. Everybody would be think you're crazy to think that that could happen to Iran. But if you look at the conditions that Bangladesh is today, it's actually that fear is more common. Like more people look at the attitudes in people in Bangladesh and they think that it's a justifiable fear. So in fact, it's more likely for Bangladesh for it to turn like that than than Iran. Iran had less conditions in its favor for it to become an Islamic regime. So I'm not saying that this is done. Like a lot of people are like, Armin, no, this is not going to happen in Bangladesh. You're acting like it's something that's going to happen for sure. I'm not saying whether it will happen or not. I'm saying that the fears are justified. Nobody could predict the future, but the concern is justified. And whatever side you are on regarding the previous regime, if you are secular minded in Bangladesh, you have to now put those differences aside and work together to stop from an Islamic government to take over, right? And also one thing else I want to mention, I don't know why they removed this ban. Why did they remove this ban? The ban. This is why here on this channel we promote liberalism instead of absolute democracy. Liberalism puts a limit on democracy. Not everything should be decided by the majority. Absolute democracy is the tyranny of the majority. Liberalism means that there are certain principles that the majority does not get to change. When it comes to human rights, when it comes to secularism, when it comes to women's rights, with regards to a lot of other things that Islam is against, this is why the solution is not more democracy. The solution is more liberalism, because there are certain things that we know for a fact that works, that the majority of the people should not be able to change. And this is why, especially in Islamic countries, it's important for the narrative to switch from saying, oh, democracy, we want democracy. The narrative needs to change from democracy to we want liberalism, because liberalism has the correct amount of democracy in it, but it also has the correct amount of limitation on majority rule in it, so that Islamism could not take over. The ban on an Islamic party should be there, because you have to maintain secularism in your country. So even if the majority want an Islamic party within your government, you have to say like, no, this is our principle is secularism. The ban on Islamic parties should remain. Why? And before people might come and tell me that, Armin, you're being a hypocrite because you say we shouldn't ban Islam, but then now you're saying that we should ban Islam. Okay, it's not actually. I'm not. This is not a hypocritical position, because you should ban Islam from politics. You should not ban Islam when it comes to civil society being able to express itself. That's freedom of speech. But also, that's the principle of freedom of expression means that the expression of Islam should be allowed, but also the principle of secularism means that Islam should not be able to be allowed to do in your politics, in the politics of your country. There should be a limit there. Anyways, so these are not contradictory. If you think these are contradictory, it's because you don't understand what I'm saying. But yeah, go on.
Well, okay. Let's take a case in point from history. Okay, so in 2013, there was a court case that banned Jamaat-e-Islami from contesting in elections. What was the basis of this case? This was a case that was put forward by a group of petitioners. Okay, not like the Awami League government. And this group of petitioners argued three main things. And I think that two first main points against this group are the strongest. One, the party's registration was unconstitutional. The Constitution obliges citizens to refrain from communal politics and to uphold the country's independence and sovereignty. And two, Jamaat violated the representation of the people order, which is like a thing in law. That order, enacted by the interim government at the time in 2008, said that all political parties needed women among their leadership. They refused to do this. So essentially, the argument was that if your party platform is unconstitutional, you should not be allowed to participate in our elections. That's pretty that seems pretty logical to me. And this is the constant paradox of tolerating intolerance, right?
So why did they
And
remove the ban? The ban made sense.
well, there was a different there was like the ban. They were not allowed to contest elections, but they were allowed. This is my understanding. It's very complicated, and like I said, there's been so many changes in its legal status over the years. Like, please correct me if I'm wrong. In 2013, they were banned from contesting elections. Still think that they were allowed to continue like existing, and then in the past month, with all the uprising in Bangladesh, it got full blown banned by the government of the Awami League in general. Okay. And then so that was what was overturned. And I believe that now they are allowed to re-register to contest elections now. And I believe so again, people are free to correct me because I'm still learning a lot about this and I'm very open to that. But I believe some of the incentive to do this is to show that Bangladesh is no longer silencing opposition because that was the environment under Sheikh Hasina. And there are some things like silencing opposition was a huge what's the word I'm looking for? It was systematic. And many of the ways in which they silenced the opposition from Jamaat-e-Islami was many people have criticized it as legally tenuous. So, for example, in the past 10 years, maybe a little over 10 years, I can't quite remember. No, I think it was 2013. A lot. So Jamaat-e-Islami has been alleged to have participated in the war crimes, horrific war crimes and atrocities that were committed against the Bengali people in support of the East Pakistan army that was, freaking brutalizing this nation, right? They supported the people brutalizing the nation. And there are many ways of doing this, paramilitaries among student groups. And there was a series of trials in which the leaders of Jamaat-e-Islami were prosecuted, imprisoned, or executed because of their role in these war crimes. Now, I obviously think that people being held accountable for what they did in the liberation war is extremely necessary because there is almost like no acknowledgement in the world about what happened. Like, I believe that there was a genocide against Hindus during this time, deliberate. Um, and just like no one cares, apparently, just no one cares. So I would like to see some justice. My understanding is that many people have criticized the actual trials that happened with these people who are alleged to have done these things was legally sketchy. There's been criticism of the legal process. So it's one of those examples where the leaders of this party should 100% be held accountable, but were they held accountable in the right way? Many were executed. Then in turn led to communal violence. And um basically the big issue is nowadays is Jamaat holding it, is there any reconciliation? They basically still deny to this day that they did anything in the early 70s. Complete denial,
Right, but
non-acknowledgement.
I mean, we don't. I mean, so these are bans for these are historic things, but so maybe the ban before by Hasina, you could say it was correct or incorrect. It was politically motivated. It was based on historical events. So even if that makes no sense, it still makes sense to for other reasons to have bans on this group. I mean, they're an Islamic group.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, so maybe her ban, the reason why we had the ban before, okay, I don't care. This group should still be banned. This group should still be banned from entering politics. I mean, silencing opposition, you're not silencing them if they get to speak as individual citizens, right? You can still speak, but you do not meet the requirements to be part of the government. Every country should have certain limitations on who gets to be part of government. That is not against freedom of speech because you as individuals still can express your opinions. It's against freedom of speech if you are being targeted or arrested for saying something. With the sake of not silencing your opinion. For example, imagine the United States allowed Nazis to form a party for the
Mhm.
sake of free speech. No, Nazis
Mhm.
in the United States get to express themselves as Nazis. They could that's what freedom of speech means. You cannot say like, okay, let's go all the way and allow them to have a Nazi party in the United States. No,
Like a
that is not free
legitimate
speech. That
political party that can run in elections when they're
yes,
literally anti-democratic. Like, no.
that is not free speech. That is insanity. Free speech that means only that I get to express myself and that's it. You do not owe more than that. The government is not owed. It does not need to do more than that. Freedom of speech does not mean the right to form a political party. Also, is that their logo that you have on the cover of the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Jamaat-e-Islami?
Yeah.
So you know how people always say that the Allah looks like a ball sack, the way you write Allah. You know that, right? You're familiar with that, or is this new? I just wanted to
I wasn't
mention that
expecting you to put it that way, right?
no, no, it does look like a ball sack, and also the hair at the very end looks like I don't know the penis after ejaculation. So it looks like a full-on ball sack next to a penis
Oh my
after you ejaculate. But the interesting thing is that in the logo that they have, because they added those green, scales, it actually looks more like a ball sack because they added the wrinkles as well. I just want to say that as much as the Allah name looks like a ball sack, usually Jamaat-e-Islami have added some parts to it that makes it even more like a ball sack. Do you guys not agree?
No, people in the live chat are upset that you brought that to their attention.
No.
I don't think people are happy to have this brought into their mind.
Yeah. No, it's important to recognize that. It's important to mention this is a good form of blasphemy, okay? Tell Muslims around the world that their Allah looks like a ball sack, okay? Just make sure you're being extremely offensive.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I agree. See, a Pakistani atheist agrees with me. Fantastic. That's all I needed.
Um so one thing that I was trying to decipher when I was reading a lot about this in preparation for the news today is like, okay, well, we have these concerns. A lot of people have these concerns. Particularly, the Hindu population in Bangladesh has major concerns. I have heard news of a blasphemy lynching that happened in the country this past week. I'm still I'm still looking for more information about it. I think we might cover that potential lynching. Um I'm just waiting for more information to come out. So people definitely are concerned. But historically, Jamaat-e-Islami has not actually performed very well in elections. And my understanding is that they have very well organized social networks. And so they're able to bring a lot of people out on the street. And that causes a big spectacle, but they still actually perform very poorly in elections. So I'm be very curious to see how this evolves going forward, because talking about the social networks, it reminded me a lot of what Armin talks about in terms of the networks of the mullahs in Iran before the revolution. Um and so in terms of analysis, like people, I've just seen analysts all over the place in terms of whether they think they actually will have mass support, whether they won't. Some people are like, "Oh, our liberal values in Bangladesh are way too strong for this, da da da." And then other people are like, "I think that they are very very well organized. They just haven't had the potential yet." Other people say that the party's history is too toxic for most Bengalis to want to support it. So it's all over the place. Um and I will continue to be paying attention to this, especially instances of violence against minorities, because I think that now is a very important time to pay attention to this. Um so let's go to the super chats. Um A gave a super chat saying, I personally prefer to call them ham ass. Okay, if you say that, I at least know what you mean. But when you just say ham, I'm gonna think you're literally talking about a ham hock, okay? Like, please help me out here. Um, People need to remember that to us, you're just text on a screen. We don't know if you're being sarcastic. We don't know if you're making a joke where you're pretending to be stupid, and that is the joke, because we see so much nonsense. We're going to take you seriously and think that you're being stupid. We've made this mistake before, and it will happen again. And I did want to highlight several comments from Shuvo, because Shuvo comes from a Bengali Hindu family, and Shuvo is actually a really good friend of mine. And I'm glad that he's here to give some commentary, saying becoming an Islamic country is not considered a threat by most Bangladeshis. People really need to understand that. Shuvo also said the majority of Iranians do not want Islam. That does not apply for Bangladeshis.
So here's so what I'm saying, I acknowledge that becoming is not a considered a threat. It's not a considered a threat because many people want Islam in Bangladesh. So that threat should be taken seriously in Bangladesh. That this is actually, there might not be that much of a resistance to it if Bangladesh becomes Islamic. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Also saying Bangladeshis are not secular. People need to understand this. Bangladesh's principle is not secularism. It was thrown in the constitution to make it look cute. Bangladeshis do not consider Islamic laws to be threatening. Yeah. Well, in the majority is what you're saying, because I know there's certainly a lot of people that do. And
including himself.
Yeah. Jamaat has worked under the table in the last few years. They are more powerful than the BNP, which is the other major opposition party, or what was the opposition party to the Awami League. And the BNP and Jamaat-e-Islami have worked in coalitions before in the past. They're more powerful than the BNP. They will rise. I know, which is a big part of why I want to pay attention to this, because I was watching this really great documentary about Islamism in Bangladesh, created by DW. I think it was just called like Zero Tolerance: The Dawn of Islamism in Bangladesh. It was a really good piece. It was done 6 years ago. And in the end of this documentary, there are these young guys who are starting college, and they're just these musicians, and they talk about how they have freedom, but they want more freedom, and like have this desire for a new and better country. And I just think about all those students who legitimately do want a newer, better country, and it would be such a tragedy to have the people who were injured or lost their lives because of how they genuinely want more freedom just completely taken advantage of because of this. Yeah, like there there needs to be a space for free thinking in Bangladesh. Um Okay, so let's go through some super chats. Hu Jintao gave a super chat saying, once again, Hindus will suffer in their ancestral homeland. Again, just like the Zoroastrians in their homeland. Do you join viewers to talk to? If you're asking to come onto the live stream right now, the answer is no. But thank you for the super chat. GJ gave a super chat saying, how was Khomeini talked into being Iran's supreme leader against his ideas? PS off topic. Iran's revolution used the new media, aka the Phillips cassette tape. Armin, how about you answer that first question?
Yeah, so Khomeini was not talked into being the supreme leader against his own ideas. Before he believed in the mullahs becoming the leaders. It was in his book Velayat Faqih before the revolution even started that was his idea. The reason why I said that he did not expect to become the leader is because he didn't think he would be capable of doing that. He thought that at the beginning of the revolution in 1979 there were too many other forces, specifically the Marxists, that were competing for power with the mullahs, and it didn't seem like the mullah, like Khomeini, didn't expect him to be able to gain all the power after the revolution. But his idea for the ideal solution was from the very beginning for the mullahs to gain all the power, and eventually, because so nobody had to talk him into it. It's just that things ended up working out for him. They managed to effectively eliminate all the Marxists and basically gain all the power.
Yeah. Oh, another quick comment from Shuva, which I think was good, saying there's a small movement to change the national anthem of Bangladesh. The anthem was written by a Hindu poet. Wink, wink. That's an indication of where things are heading. And you can also see this in the destruction of statues in Bangladesh, because Sheikh Hasina's father was like the founding father of Bangladesh. His statues and pictures are being destroyed because of his association to her. And there's also like, because these brain dead Islamists um, are just anti-statue. There's been movements to remove statues of the Lady of Justice in front of courthouse in Bangladesh because the statue is idolatry. Um, like any statue, it's that kind of stuff just drives me crazy. Like any statue is idolatry. Okay, sure. um So, another super chat from Hu Jintao saying, even before these protests, all supported by U.S. NGOs in Bangladesh, U.S. embassy officials were meeting opposition parties in Bangladesh for months. The U.S. wants St. Martin's Islands to be in Indian Ocean, but Hasina was too close to India and China. U.S. interferes without considering consequences. And that's another aspect of this, in that there are a lot of much, much, much larger geopolitical influences at play that I'm not going to pretend to be like an expert in, but it's something that I'm interested in learning more about. Um, Hu Jintao also said the U.S. installed Muhammad Yunus, a major Clinton Foundation donor. Leftists trust Islamists to gain power, but then Islamists kill leftists. It has been observed many times. And GJ is asking, did Bangladesh not begin as East Pakistan? No. So the what we call today Pakistan was East Pakistan, and Bangladesh was West Pakistan. And they were geographically and culturally divided. And West Pakistan wanted liberation, and respect for their Bengali language and identity. And there
Actually,
was a
that's not true. Bangladesh was East Pakistan before.
no.
Used to be called, yeah. Bangladesh used to be called
Am I
East
losing my
Pakistan.
mind? Did I do a
Yeah. No,
whoopsie?
Bangladesh. Yeah, you did a whoopsie.
Oh my
It's
god,
East
I'm sorry. I
Pakistan.
did a whoopsie.
Yes.
I did a whoopsie. My bad.
From
My
from
apologies.
1947 to 1979, Bangladesh used to be called the East Pakistan. So it's
I
the
did a
opposite.
whoopsie. I
West.
apologize, and I'm gonna blame it on not feeling well today.
It's that's okay.
um, Thank you
So
for pointing
the
that out.
current Pakistan used to be called West Pakistan, and now it's just Pakistan.
Yeah. Yep. That's my bad. Um,
That's
Aiden gave a super chat saying, "Now every time I walk into a mosque for Eid, we got money from Bosnia. How cool! To keep my apostasy secret, I will start laughing aloud. Thanks a lot, Armin." John is also
yes.
saying,
See,
"Armin,
so
are you 5 years old?"
hold on. Okay, so first of all, I'm glad that more people are saying it. Aiden is confirming that it does actually, Allah does actually look like you know, balls, right? And also balls like John. This is actually an important source of blasphemy for the Iranian people. So you are basically making fun of Iranian culture right now. Iranian culture is now blasphemy against Islam, and this is one of them. So seeing the resemblance between what Allah looks at, and again, Iranian people do need this to make fun of religious symbols because of the level of oppression and silencing. So going out all the way extreme to the other side of making fun of religious symbols is actually very important part of responding to all the silencing that they have been experiencing for the past 40 years. I do have a picture that shows how much Allah does look like ball sacks. Can I show that, Susanna? You can see what it looks like. Is
I
that?
can see it
Can I
below.
show
I
that?
don't want
You don't want to show that? Okay,
to. No.
okay. Can you say I can't unsee that? Well,
For those
good.
who don't know, on
You're
the
welcome.
backstage, I've been seeing in my bottom third these little hairy balls on my screen for the past 10 minutes. I'm not super into it. And
Okay.
we don't
That's
need
good.
to put everyone else through this, okay? Instead of keeping it a little thing in my bottom third, who wants to just make my whole screen? Okay, cool. It's still sitting there. Put that away.
I put it away.
Okay, now my eyeballs are safe.
Okay.
Oh my god.
There's another thing that they say about Allah that I'm not even gonna say the way Allah the written because when here's the thing, when they make fun of Muhammad or Ali or Hussein, these are people. So when they make cartoons about them, there's something to work with, right? But because Allah doesn't actually have like there's no figure, there's no entity that you could point to as Allah, right? It's harder for people to use cartoons or drawings against an entity that doesn't even have a body. So that's why people go after Allah, the written word of Allah, and try to make fun of that because there's no, like, when it comes to drawings and art, right? And given that how much this offended a whole bunch of you in the chat, I'm not even going to say the main one because that is actually way worse than like the way that people make fun of the written word of Allah. This actually 10 times worse than what I just said. And I'm just going to leave that for Susanna. I'm going to say that I don't know. She seems pretty upset. Maybe I won't even tell Susanna. She can't tell.
Like, do we have to at least give me
Yeah, I'm
like
not gonna.
a break, you know? Like
I'm not gonna.
just
Okay, I won't even tell you then.
a second episode, please.
Okay.
Please,
Sure.
senor.
Yeah.
Gajan gave a super chat saying, "The Lady of Justice is the Roman goddess Justitia. Liberty is the Roman goddess Libertas. Hu Jintao was the last president to have term limits." Yeah, okay, here's the thing. Just because these figures that are essentially allegories for values that we aspire to came or has a origin with the Greek or Roman pagan goddess doesn't mean that people are literally praising that thing like it's an idol. That's so stupid. Someone say you failed geography, you're finished, you charlatan. I think you're making fun of Muhammad Hijab. You finished.
Do you know who makes the most amazing, gorgeous, and other adjectives that I can't use here on YouTube, blasphemous art ever? We do! And for some reason, we are giving it away for free. Download them now using the link in the description before we change our mind.